Saiti, shall I share the screen? You stop
Yeah,
sharing.
please start. Yeah.
Good evening, delegates and participants. Thank you for joining Shield Connect. And today we are back with this head series that is FOGSI IAEC Committee in collaboration with Women and Health Together for the Future Presents webinar on today's topic is international research from West Zone, Maharashtra. And before we start with this session, let me give a quick introduction of our product launched in Shield Connect. So let me share my screen for 2 minutes, ma'am. So I'm Nishan Chawda, Regional Medical Advisor from Shield Healthcare. We at Shield always believe in innovation with science, and we have recently launched this new product, Dismegesic, for primary dysmenorrhea, which contains fencon from fennel extract, ursolic acid from rosemary leaf extract, curcumin extract, and bromelain from pineapple extract. And the action mode is anti-spasmodic, which will reduce menstrual cramp, anti-inflammatory action by reducing pro-inflammatory factors, and analgesic effect and giving pain relief. So the role of the ingredients are bromelain will give an analgesic effect, anti-inflammatory effect, and curcumin will block the contraction by reducing the influx of calcium ion and modulates the inflammatory response by COX-2 inhibition. Ursolic acid will also inhibit the synthesis of PGG2 and PGH2 and will give the pain relief and anti-inflammatory action. And Fancon will act as a central action. And we also have conducted a clinical trial at Bangalore and Chennai. 120 women were selected with dysmorphic pain, and we received data from 80 patients. This Dismegesic was given for 2 consecutive cycles, twice a day, and we received the data where it showed a reduction in pain within approximately 32 minutes, and there was also reduction in pain score by second cycle of the treatment, and there was also reduction in other menstrual symptoms. And the plus point was there were no side effects. So I thank you to everyone patient listening. Please do prescribe our new product Dismegesic. It is safe and effective to use for long-term management of primary dysmenorrhea. And I thanks Dr. Varsha Baste ma'am for giving me this opportunity for launching Dismegesic on this webinar. So now let's
I'm
get
very
back on
happy that
our.
this is a herbal product and natural ingredient you have incorporated. So
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
really good to use it and try it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. So now again, uh, Saiti, will you start sharing the screen now? So we can start. So now let me introduce our MOC for today's webinar, Dr. Nasreen Mawani and Dr. Pallavi Ingle. Dr. Nasreen Mawani is past president of Chandrapur Society, and ma'am is president of Arushi Social Work Foundation and practicing since 17 years. And ma'am is also executive member of IAEC for FOGSI 2021-2022. And now let me introduce also our another MOC, Dr. Pallavi Ingle. Ma'am is Vice President of IMA Chandrapur and President of PCP and DT Advisory Committee from Chandrapur District. And ma'am is a Master Trainer for CMOC and BMOC trainings at Civil Hospital Chandrapur. So I welcome both the MOCs for today's webinar, and I hand over the session to Dr. Nasreen Mawani. Ma'am, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nishant. And at the outset, let me welcome all of you to this wonderful and a very unique webinar, wherein we will be talking about a very holistic approach to how to be academically upping our game. So when it comes to research and development, we all are a party to it. We all have taken benefits of research of many people who have been there before us. But when it comes to our documentation of our own research, we go on a back foot, resulting in a basket, our own basket, which is full of a lot of experiences from our clinical practice, but we haven't extended the benefit of that experience full of basket to others. So this is the time when we learn methodically from stalwarts how to do research and how to take it forward, how to document it, and how to present it. I take a lot of pleasure in introducing to you the people behind this, the thought behind this webinar. So Dr. Varsha Baste, of course, she's a very, very well-known name in the corridors of OBGYN. And besides whatever is flashing on the screen, I would just like to add, she's a dashing, gorgeous lady with a lovely presence on screen and off screen. Stylish outfits are her hallmark. And she has a genuine interest in uplifting people from all areas of India and bringing them together and uplifting their morale and genuinely interested in taking them forward. So I really congratulate you, madam, on this wonderful thought and wonderful webinar. And over to the official introduction for madam. She's from Nasik, practicing for the past 30 years. And she is the founder of CellGen Anti-Aging Stem Cell Center. She past president of OBGYN Nasik Society, and lot of prestigious awards to her share. And we will see her hopefully in many more dynamic and dashing roles in FOGSI in the years ahead. Over to you, madam. Second,
Thank you.
Yeah, so sorry, ma'am.
Yes, yes.
I would also like to welcome co-convener Dr. Surekha Taide, madam. Dr. Pratibha, I will not be introducing Prof. Surekha Taide, madam, right away, because that we have kept for some other time. And I would also like to introduce Dr. Pratibha Sinha, who is the National Coordinator for International Academic Exchange Society. Dr. Priya Shinde, our very own Secretary of FOGSI Society, Chandrapur. She has also been the leader for this, leading this webinar. And Dr. Pam, that is Dr. Shashi Bala, who is the Gwalior OBGYN President. So now over to you, Varsha ma'am.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. And good evening, son. I'm so happy and really feeling the flattering comments by Dr. Maureen. She is so beautiful. Actually, friends, the brainchild of this webinar is not me. I was given the impetus by this Nasreen and Dr. Priya, who are the budding OBGYN Society FOGSians from Chandrapur, and they are really, really so active. Can you imagine Chandrapur, a small town? From there, these young budding FOGSians asking me to conduct an international research webinar. So you can just how the height of their standard and their mindfulness and their eagerness to learn more and more and to bring in the stalwarts to give more information, updates for the young people. They told me, madam, we will do this webinar. We will invite the teachers and students and those medical college people. We will tell them to join because everybody is so much eager. So I was very, very happy. And as an International Academic Exchange Committee chairperson, I thought I must include international faculty also. So Dr. Nachappa, Shivasan from UK, he's just now busy in case. So he said that he will join soon. So instead of him, Dr. Our Geeta Balsarkar is the first speaker. But let me introduce Dr. Basab Mukherjee, sir. Sir, welcome. I'm really glad you are here as chief guest. And the Basab, we are really, really honored to have you here because a person like you is apt for this post of chief guest for this webinar of international research the topic. So to formally introduce Dr. Basab, he is the Vice President FOGSI now. Vice President Bengal OBGYN Society, member ICOG Government Council, Secretary AICC RCOG India, FIGO Coordinator, Founder Secretary ISOPARP Kolkata, Founder Secretary IAEC Bengal, Organizing Secretary now of AICOG Kolkata 2023, Young Gynecologist Awardee, at Taipei and contributed more than 30 chapters in his textbooks. And moreover, friends, he is very near and dear friend and very decent, and his articulate speech and everything. I really adore his, I think, in his speeches, and he's really humble and very, very nice, gentle fellow, gentleman. So now may I have Dr. Basa Mukherjee to address us with your pearls of wisdom. Dr. Basa.
Yeah, I think pearls of wisdom will be coming later, Dr. Varsha. This is not pearls of wisdom. This is just sharing some thoughts now. But I think the idea of this CAB is wonderful. I think you brought up some interesting aspects about research because as was, I think, spoken by Dr. Nasreen, it's something which we don't normally see every day. Most of us do not document our work. The best way we can skill transfer is a very important aspect of our profession, that the skills which you develop in a lifetime, if they're never transferred, if they're never spilled onto somebody else, they die with you. So that's something which is so important. So what you can do is you can get yourself into mentorship roles, you can get yourself into training, you can get somebody to learn what you have learned. Or the other thing is that you can publish, where you have collect your data methodically over the time, over years, and then publish it. So there are different ways in which you can live after yourself, write books, write articles, train people, involve people. But skill transfer is a very integral part of our profession, unfortunately, because doctors have years of experience with them, which often they just die with them, and that doesn't pass on to the next generation. It's so important that you get teachers of the medical colleges, wonderful teachers that you see. They live through their students, they live through their work which they have done through their students, and that's so important. So research comes in a very important part of it, and I'm sure all of us do appreciate this point, which often is not mentioned. But it's important not just to do good work yourself, which most of us are doing all right, but also to pass it on, that the next generation, that your students do it, and the good work continues in the years to come. I think that's so important, Dr. Varsha, and thank you for calling me here. Dr. Surekha, hello. Dr. Pam, hello. And Kiran, hi. Pratibha, hello. So, Dr. Sujata, hi. I think there's a lot of people who we all know very much. It's nice to connect with all of you. Thank you, and let's move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very well said, Dr. Basa. Now I would invite Dr. Pratibha Sinha, madam, to please invite Dr. Sujata Dalvi.
Hello, Dr. Nasreen. I'm Dr. Pratibha Singh, not Pratibha Sinha.
Very sorry, ma'am.
So just correct that. Anyway, good evening, everyone. And I would like to welcome all of you. And it is very, very important what Dr. Basa said just now, that the skill transfer is an integral part of our teaching and profession. And along with that, documentation and research is also important. So Dr. Basa, you have given a very important message, and I think we are lagging behind. The newer generation, they are more documenting and writing and everything. But when we started our practice, I think we have not documented anything, and now we just regret for that. So that is really, it should have been done from since we have started our practice and since we have started our PG stage. So only writing our thesis, that is what we had done, nothing else. So thank you. And I think now we will do that also. And with this, I would like to give my regards to Dr. Kiran sir also, and all stalwarts who have joined today. And it's my proud privilege to welcome and introduce Dr. Sujata Dalvi, madam. She is a consultant obstetrician and gynecologist from Mumbai, and she is a visiting doctor to so many hospitals, almost 5 to 6 hospitals in Mumbai. She is a joint associate editor of Jogi, clinical secretary, Mumbai Ops and Gynae Society, and first joint secretary, AMOGS. So with this, I will request madam to please bless us with your thoughts. Over to madam.
For a nice introduction and for a kind introduction. At an outset, I'd like to say to be a guest of honor for today's webinar, which is by FOGSI International Academic, and it is on a research methodology. Research methodology forms a backbone of continuous medical education, and you need to have that seminar so that people are a little bit in the know-how of how to conduct this. And for this, I would to acknowledge the efforts made by FOGSI IAGE chairperson, Dr. Varsha Baste, And it is only because of her efforts that such sort of a webinar has come into place. I would also like to acknowledge the co-convener of today's program, Dr. Surekha Taide. She is going to conduct a quiz for today's program. Mind you, all these programs, such like this, will not be formed without support from our FOGSI president, Dr. Kumari, Secretary General, Dr. Madhuri Patel, and also a chair, Women and Together, Dr. Lewis. I would also like to mention today's speaker, that is Dr. Geeta Balsarkar, editor of Jogi from UK, Girija Bag. I'm sure they are going to do justice to whatever they're going topics given to them, and the people who are listening to them would learn a lot at the end of today's session. And I would like to best wishes as well as a grand success for this program. Thank you so much.
Thank
you,
you,
Dr. Sujata Dalvi, madam, for coming over and sparing the time and giving your precious, valuable opinion and inputs also to us. And you are always grounded, loving, and always available, accommodating, a very warm soul, and we love your company. You are so accommodating, so nice person, and you, in spite of having such a grand credentials and AMOG secretary, but you are so approachable. Anytime I ask you, you said, yes, go ahead, I am always available. Thank you so much we are really obliged for your presence. Thank you.
Now I invite Dr. Priya Shinde to please introduce Dr. Kiran and ask him to say a few words, please.
Thank you, Dr. Nasreen Mawani. Good evening, one and all. At the outset, first I want to thank our dear Dr. Varsha Basta madam on behalf of all 5 societies who have joined here today, because madam considered our request for this topic and blessed us with this informative webinar, which we were planning since few months, madam. While submitting the report to the FOGSI last year, I find out that our COGS member in the Group C societies, they have worked very much in the field of awareness programs as well as other projects. But when the column was there, how many members have submitted the papers or have written some journals? So that column was blank. So I discussed with my senior Nasreen madam and Pallavi, and so this was planned, and with your blessing, we are all here. Thank you very much, ma'am. And I'm looking this webinar as a first stepping stone in direction of research and paper presentation under the guidance of all stalwarts present here. And coming back to the task given to me regarding the introduction and invite to the Kiran Kottakoti sir. We all know sir very well. Sir is from Pune, and sir has sir was there with many posts at Pune Obstetric Society, then AMOGS FOGSI. Presently, he is the Vice President AMOGS, and sir is just a phone call away from us. We all know sir is very easily approachable for the C societies also. And sir is a direct. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Priya. I think.
No, sir. Just one. Okay.
Thank you so much. I think I'll start.
I welcome you, sir, and
yes,
over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's indeed a great pleasure and honor for me to be here. And today's chief guest, Dr. Basap, Dr. Shanta, Dr. Madhuri, and all other FOGSI stalwarts. It's really a pleasure for AMOGS to be here because today's conveners, co-conveners, both are ardent members of AMOGS as well as the society, AMOGS societies, my Vidarbha society. I call them my Vidarbha societies because I've got very fond memories whenever I visited them. So excellent work that you are doing. And the faculty that you have chosen is just fabulous, and all are hardcore academicians. And here I would like to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Geeta Balsarkar, who is the editor of Jogi. And Geeta is doing a fantastic work. In fact, as we all know, anemia is one of the pandemics. So similarly, is another pandemic that has hit us. Fortunately, only our faces can be seen on Zoom. So we thank Zoom for that, because nobody can see what is below the shoulder. So thank you, Zoom, for that. Otherwise, everyone will understand how great a pandemic is obesity. And thank you, Geeta, for addressing that. And really a great topic that we have chosen. If I remember, about 10 years back, Dr. Mahendra Parekh had started this PICSEP program, which inculcated research methodology into us. So taking it further, thank you, Dr. Varsha Baste and Dr. Surekha Taide, for taking this program further. and introducing this clinical research methodology to all the practicing obstetricians as well as the postgraduate students. So thank you so much for that. And Dr. Varsha, I know that you have greater aims, and Amox wishes you very best of luck to you in the future endeavors, and we are sure that you will take the organizations ahead. So thank you so much. Please get on with
Thank you, Dr. Kiran Kutarkoti. I always call him Kaka Kiran because he's always accommodating, so loving. Both Sujata and Dr. Kiran, they make us really feel family, like Amox. We are family friends, and it's a big family, Amox. But the leaders are so grounded and so humble and so genuine that we do not feel intimidated by their post, and they are always available. Thank you, Dr. Kiran, for sparing your time and really giving good inputs, and your observation is really keen. Thank you so much for having you here. Over to you, MOCs.
Yeah. Dr. Pallavi, I welcome you, and please carry the session forward.
Yeah, so now we will come to the actual sessions.
Whenever before that, can I, excuse me, Pallavi, I want to acknowledge other people also, because I thought I will do it later. Let me welcome Dr. Geeta Balsarkar, my co-convener, Dr. Surekha Taide, Dr. Girija Wagh, and Dr. Nachappa, who are the speakers, and all the Vidarbha Society chairpersons who are secretaries also, who are here as the chairpersons, and they have acknowledged their presence by being available here and gracing the occasion. So I am really thankful on behalf of FOGSI International Academic Exchange Committee. We welcome you all, and we are really truly obliged and grateful for your presence. Thank you so much. Over to you, Pallavi.
Thank you, Varsha madam. Now we will start with our webinar. When it comes to research, how to select a topic for research is the big problem, and it is a very basic question. Whenever a person is going for a research, he wants to select a topic. On this subject, we have none other than Dr. Geeta Balsarkar madam, who will be a speaker. And to chair this session, I would like to invite Dr. Manjusha Takpallivar, who is president of FOGSI OBGYN Society. Madam is there or not? I am not sure.
She was stuck up in emergency, so you can ask another chairperson.
The second chairperson is Dr. Rupali Rathi madam. She is president of Akola OBGYN Society and a director of Siddhivinayak Hospital, Akola. Welcome, madam. And the third chairperson is Dr. Bharat Lanjewar sir, who is president of Bhandara OBGYN Society. Thank you, sir. Now I hand over it to Dr. Rupali Rathi madam, or any of the chairpersons who will invite Dr. Geeta Balsarkar madam and read the CV.
I welcome Dr. Lanjewar and Dr. Rathi madam for chairing the session, and please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Varsha ma'am. I'm thankful for the organizers for giving me this opportunity. I invite Dr. Geeta Balsarkar madam. She is editor-in-chief of Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology of India. She was also treasurer of Mumbai OBGYN Society, past president of Medical Women in India Mumbai branch. She was also president of Menopause Society Mumbai. She is in fact chairperson of Young Talent Committee. She's recipient of prestigious award which was at St. George Hospital, London. She is professor of Saint JS Medical College and Nauroji Wadia Maternity Hospital. So I welcome you, ma'am, on this very important topic of how to select a topic. So over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, chairpersons. I hope my slide is seen.
Yes, we can see.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
The topic I'm going to speak on today is a selection of topic of research. Here, I would like to acknowledge, Dr. Kiran Kurtakoti said, Dr. M.N. Parikh, who used to say that every clinician is a researcher. Every person who practices is a researcher, but only we must know how to channelize this particular research. So I like to acknowledge the, amount of work that M.N. Parikh sir has done for the journal and for research of FOGSI. So today I'm going to speak today on the selection of topic for research. This is a very big challenge, not only for students, but even for professionals like me. If I have to think of writing a paper, I immediately have to think, oh, what topic should I write on? So selection of topic is a very big challenge, both for seniors, juniors, and everybody. And it is really important to do the right research as well as to do the research right. We just need to do wow research that is compelling and not just interesting, and which can be replicated by other people if they want to. So this has been said by George Springer. Incidentally, our journal, the Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology of India, is printed and published by Springer. Springer is one of the company, publishing company which prints Jogi. And this chairman has said that we have to do the right research as well as to do the research right. So to introduce, what is a topic? A topic is different from a subject. Also, these terms are very often used interchangeably. To avoid confusion, if we recall, in high schools, we had different subjects. Like physics was a subject and Newton's laws of motion was a topic. So if you want to know what subject you have to do research, then it has to be obstetrics, it has to be gynecology, it has to be fetal medicine, it has to be endoscopy, it has to be IVF. Whereas if you want to know what topic you want to do research, then you have to further find out what topic in obstetrics you want to do or what topic in gynecology you want to do. A subject of research refers to a broad and general contents, whereas a topic of research is a specific issue being investigated. This is the first point I want to clarify, that they are often used interchangeably. Oh, what should be my topic of research? We have students who come and ask us. So they should first know what subject they want to do, and then they have to narrow down what topic they want to do. Now, what is the role of guide in all this? In funded research project, the candidate is supposed to work with the already identified topics and objectives. Like we have ICMR, which is a funded organization, and they fund some research projects. And then the candidate is just supposed to follow whatever work has already been given and identify what is the topic and what are the objectives of the study. The guide may suggest some research topics which may be an extension of his prior research. Like if I am working on fetal medicine, mostly my topics for research for my postgraduate students will be on fetal medicine. It's very unlikely that I would be likely to guide somebody on IVF when I myself don't have much experience in IVF. The guide may have knowledge in the topic also, and the researcher can get good support for them. So it is a very good idea to know what is the role of the guide. And if the guide is, whatever is the topic that the guide is working on, doing research will be good for that particular student also. Now there are roles of the guide or the supervisor, and there are role of a student. What is the role of this guide? To assist the student in identifying a suitable research topic. So it is a role of the guide or the teacher to, assist the student to identify what type of topic they want to choose for research and to set up a program of study. Not only have to identify the topic, they have to monitor the student progress from time to time. In 3 months, what has been done, in 6 months, what has been done, in 9 months, what has been done. And he has to guide students and what to do and explain the reason why you have to do like this. Like if you are doing some study on anemia, why you have to do hemoglobin, what is the rationale behind it? We have to explain it to the students to assist the student in interpretation of the research and finding the output. Make students aware of their responsibilities. So whenever you are given some responsibility, what is the responsibility of the student and what are the supervisor's expectation? Like I want this written in 3 weeks and you have to come back in 3 weeks with all the topics. So that is how you have to give them time. Consult and advise even if they have a personal problem. And finally is to give them a degree for their particular thesis that they have written. Now, what is the role of a student? The research topic must always be chosen with the help of the supervisor, which the supervisor considers to be suitable, and whether the student is competent. Sometimes when the student comes, we feel that they are not They may not be able to take, bigger topics. So you may suggest some topics which are very easy to do. So the role of the student is to understand that there are limitations of the study and there are personal limitations also, and they will have to take the help of the guide to select the topic, to work very systematically within the agreed deadlines. Very, very important. Nowadays, we have to just push the students in the departmental review board meeting. Last month, I gave you this work. What happened? Why have you not done it? The student has to work systematically and within the agreed deadlines. And as far as possible, they have to meet the program deadlines. They have to be very well prepared for meetings with the supervisor. We have postgraduate students who don't bring any paper. They just come for a meeting when you call them and they say, Madam, I'll submit this tomorrow. So the meeting doesn't work like that. And they have to give serious attention to the advice and the direction, whatever the guide give them. And to realize the supervisor also has duties and commitments. We have people who come in the evening or night, they call up and say, no, I want this particular help. No, that's not the way it is. You have to remember that the guide also has got duties and commitments. We have to take prior appointments. We are all professionals. They have to behave very, very professionally and to perform the research as per the supervisor's directions. Now, everybody wants to generate new ideas or research topics. So where will you get these new ideas? First, creative thinking is needed to generate new, original and unique ideas. And you don't have to be very senior for that. Even junior people or even nurses have come up with good, new, original and unique ideas. Literature review you need to do to determine what is known and what is not known, and the areas that need additional research, where we can do additional research. Carefully look through recommendations for future research and limitation sections of the dissertations and review articles published in the journal. So if you look at this particular recommendation for future research, most people in their scholarly review articles, they end it with recommendation for future research, or they will tell you what are the limitations of this particular topic. So when you look at this, you can generate new ideas for research. Where will you get this? One, we can search on the internet, which is very, very easy nowadays. But be very careful that not every website is trustworthy and secure. We have to try and avoid the non-trustworthy websites. We have to attend presentations, discussions, recommendations of conference seminars in the field to get ideas about the current and the future research needs. The participant can also approach the authors. If they read some journal article and they like the article very much, they can approach the authors and they can ask them, why did this idea come to you? What advice do you give me for future research? And they will give you suggestions for future research. The researcher can interact with fellow students, seniors and teachers who can stimulate innovative ideas. A good research idea may arise from certain conditions or situations. What is happening in the world? Like this slide was prepared when there was COVID-19, but now monkeypox has taken over that. So you can, look at how many monkeypox are there, how is it going to affect the pregnant women. So there are a lot of topics of research that you can do in that particular field. Now, this is a very, very important chart wherein the X and the Y axis, if you see that there is a level of students involvement in the Y axis and the level of supervisors involvement in the X axis. So depending on whether it is low or high, there are 4 quadrants. And so if the supervisor is also highly motivated and the student is also highly involved, then you get into quadrant 1, which is the ideal situation and which is called as mentoring. If the supervisor's involvement is low, kuch bhi karke jao, and the student's level of involvement is very high, it becomes like coaching. Do this, the student does that. If the student's involvement is very low and the supervisor's involvement is very high, it becomes apprenticeship. And if both are very low, it is totally unadvisable. So most of us fall in any of these 4 categories, either as a supervisor or as a postgraduate student. But the ideal one is mentoring, but mostly we end up with apprenticeship or coaching. And the 4th one is totally unadvisable. Now, if you want to know, how to conduct this research, I want you to remember this mnemonic as friends, because F is whatever is feasible, R is relevant in today's times, I is interesting to the reader. Whatever you are doing or writing has to be interesting to the reader. Only then will it be further, you can progress on it. It has to be very, very ethical, very, very ethical. And with humans, ethical with animals, code of ethics has to be completely followed. and narrow down your research. Don't do research on very broad topics, neither too broad nor too narrow. Be very focused and specific. Discipline, core discipline, related discipline. What are the specification standards? You have to follow everything. And last but not the least, the supervisor. He is a very, very important person. If it is in your hands to select a supervisor, select somebody on the basis of knowledge, interest in that particular topic, involvement in the student, commitment and honesty. Very, very important for selecting the supervisor. However, for postgraduate students, sometimes they cannot select the supervisor. To take the best of whatever they have, the knowledge, the interest, how they are involved there with you, the commitment and the honesty. So what is the criteria for a good research topic? We have already seen most of it: feasibility, significance to the discipline, originality, peer support, availability of subjects, the researcher's competence. The guide has to take the researcher's competence into mind when we give them a topic. It has to be very current, interesting to the readers, clear and unambiguous, relevant to the system, very systematic, and ethics has to be followed. So now what are the do's of choosing a research? Choose a topic that interests you. First of all, whatever topic interests you, you have to choose that. Ensure that the topic is relevant in today's time and keep the topic very, very focused. Ensure that you have enough resources to support your research. This is also very important in many topics where you have to have enough resources. So where will you find the sources for the research ideas? We can search the medical literature. We can search the scientific literature. Where do you get the scientific literature? There are open access journals which are there where you can read and get the literature. Then there is Health Internetwork Access to Research Initiative, that is HINARI, which is also accessible to most of us. Then WHO Regional Health Sciences Library, which is totally free. Then there is Medicus Index, PubMed Central, Cochrane collaboration. Of course, this is not free and you will have to pay for it, or your institution may have to pay for it, and Index Copernicus. But there are a lot of open access journals with good scientific literature that are available for you to know what is the recent research trend that is going on. So 6 ways to find a topic. Some of them are like flash of brilliance model. You just wake up one day and with a new insight idea and new problem to solve an open, important problem. But however, this happens only to very few people and rarely happens to most of us. And even if it does, you will not be able to find an advisor who agrees to this. Next is the apprentice model. We have already seen what is the apprentice model. Your advisor gives you a list of topics, like in obstetrics, they give you normal labor, this, that, breech, cesarean section, and he suggests, okay, you can do VBAC, or you can take any of the topic that you are interested in and you can work on it. This will save you a lot of time and anxiety. But the most important warning is that if you find something that you are not interested in, please don't take that as your research topic, because it will be ultimately boring, fruitless, and badly motivated. And many other students will be working on the same problem. Then the next is the Phoenix model. That is, you work on some projects and you think hard about what you have done, looking for insights and re-implement in a common framework, identify an algorithm, and the topic emerges from your work. It's especially common in systems. But you may be working on the topic for a very long time, and it will take you a long time to come to a conclusion for what has happened to the research. Then is the stapler model, which we see very often nowadays. That is, you work on a series of small topics that turn into series of conference papers, and then somehow you tie it all together, create each chapter, staple through it, and then publish it in some journal. This is called as a stapler model. Then comes the synthesis model. You read some papers from other subfields and then look where you can apply that in your own field. And you will be wasting time sometimes reading it, the other subjects, and sometimes you cannot find useful connections. Then comes the expanded term project model. This is a project that gives you a new perspective, and the project of paper combines your research project with the course project. But you can get distracted from the research if you don't find a relevant project or a paper. So the most important thing is to find a project or a paper and expand it into a research model. The most important thing is, don't be afraid to take risks. Switching areas or advisors can be risky, may move outside your advisor's area of expertise. You don't know the related work. You will have to start from scratch, but it can be very refreshing. If ever you recognize that your project isn't working, please move ahead and try to switch topics. And remember, it's very hard to publish negative results. Many journals will not accept negative results unless it's really significant. Therefore, if you realize that you're not coming to some good conclusions, you can even change the topic. So, what are the phases of the research process? The first, you have to think, identify, and purpose of literature, then review the literature, then you have to plan, choose study design, planning, and then you have to implement it. Then you have to analyze the data and interpret results, and then comes informing. The last comes informing, that is disseminating the results like journal articles or presentation. But remember, it is very, very important to go through the other four before you actually come to the publication stage. So we have to outline an area of interest, choose a topic, narrow the topic, identify the research problem, and identify the purpose of the study. Read about your interest, talk to your colleagues, they may give you good insights, find out what others are doing, observe from your environment if new anything is happening in research, be very curious and ask questions. So time management, sorry, it's jumping, is very, very important. You can't keep on doing research for years together. When we know that postgraduate students hardly get a year or year and a half, even if they are with us for 3 years, they get a year or year and a half to do the research. Therefore, time management is very, very important in the research project. And therefore, you have to stick to time and work on it every day. So these are the steps that I have already discussed you. Define the topic, plan your search, search for resources, create an outline and write the paper. Most important is put the time. In the first month, you will define the topic. Like in second month, you search for resources and create an outline. And the third month, you will write the paper. So you have to put a deadline to it, or it cannot keep on happening for as long as it goes. So we all know that what is the research process? Formulating a problem, conceptualizing a design, creating an instrument, selecting a sample, writing the research process, collecting data, processing the data, and then you write a research report. So thank you all for a patient hearing. And if you find joy in finding a new article, which is very, very relevant to your thesis, remember it has taken a lot of hard work and good thinking when it comes to doing this. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Dr. Geeta Balsarkar, what a comprehensive knowledge you have. Like you have given fantastic overview of what to do, what not to do, and how to do. So it was really though exhaustive, but it was really pinpoint diagnosis, pinpointed. Ye karo, wo karo, ye karo. So the guidance that we have got from you is really remarkable and priceless, I will say. I knew this webinar, generally for our webinar, 400, 500 people register. This webinar, almost 80, 90 people register. We knew that. But the essence of research is so important to get from the stalwarts like Geeta, Dr. Girija, and Dr. even the UK Dr. Nachappa, that even few people, those who get attracted to you, to that is very, very precious for them. So I'm really grateful that Dr. Geeta, you have come and the standard of this webinar has risen so high. I'm really thankful to you for gracing this occasion. Over to you, Dr. Rupali, for concluding the session of Dr. Geeta. If Dr. Lajja were there, he can do it.
I think is sir there?
Yeah, Dr. Rupali or Dr. Ranjawar, who is the chairperson?
Yeah,
ma'am.
Ranjawar sir is not joined. I think Dr. Rupali can go ahead.
Rupali madam is there.
Thank you. Thank you, Geeta ma'am. It was a treat to hear you. You have very nicely explained the selection of subject topics. Role of guidance or supervisor is really important. and especially the role of student, which you have very nicely explained. You also very nicely showed the recommendation for future research and its limitations, especially conduction of research under the mnemonic trends was very nicely explained by you. It was very to the point. All the whatever in points you included were very nicely explained, especially the criteria for a good research, a topic and ways to find a topic, where most of the time we feel lost how to find a topic. So very nicely. And lastly, the most important thing you told was time management in your research. I think that was the best part, and thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Dr. Priya, can you take this question for Dr. Geeta now only?
Yes, ma'am. There's one question there.
Read it.
It's very good presentation, but kindly tell us to how to approach for analysis, as this is the most vital part.
Yeah, analysis is a very vital part, but for that, like, it's very difficult to discuss in a small time. It depends on what sort of research you're doing. It is a prospective study or a retrospective study, and then we have to go. There are various ways to analyze a particular study. So that will be an entire topic, and I promise to take the next lecture on that. Dr. Baste, the next topic we will keep analysis of the research.
Yes.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
there is one more. There is one more
question is there in the chat.
Yeah,
It's
how to
from-
submit a topic to private ethics committee.
Yeah. How to submit a topic to
Private
ethics committee.
Yeah, it is like any other ethics committee. There are a lot of ethics committee. FOGSI also had an ethics committee. Unfortunately, now we don't have. But there are a lot of hospitals in Mumbai which are accepting even private projects. So you just have to submit it. There is a format which is available, and you have to, in that format, you have to just submit the topic, like whether it is institutional or private. Any research is research. So they have to go through the ethics committee approval.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Some amount of money is needed to be paid. Even for in-house, ethical committee approval also we have to pay. We are at GS Medical College also we are paying. So they have to pay money, and there is a format they have to fill that. They have to submit their topic, and they will take it up in the ethics committee meeting, and then they will get back to them and give the approval.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have come to the conclusion of the first topic of today, and now I hand over it to Dr. Nasreen Mawani for the second topic.
Thank you, Pallavi. As it is said, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. We all have taken the first step, the most difficult first step, very smoothly with Dr. Geeta Balsarkar's talk. Thank you, madam, for that. Now, going on forward with a very renowned and a person who is very well versed with how to do research. So moving on for the next speaker, now I invite the chairpersons, Dr. Gayatri Rathod, madam. She is the past president, Pusad OBGY Society. She has done her MBBS from IGMC. She is the director at Shri Seva Hospital, Pusad. She is a member of High Risk Pregnancy Committee AMOX 2022 and member of Preventive Oncology Committee FOGSI 21 to 23. Welcome, Gayatri, madam. Dr. Manoj Aglave is the second chairperson. He is a consultant laparoscopic surgeon at Bhandara. He's the secretary of Bhandara OBGY Society and ex-assistant professor, IGGMC, Nagpur. Dr. Jaya Kore is a third chairperson. She's MBBS MS. She's a consultant at Tularkar Hospital, Hinganghat. Her publications in national and international journals, areas of interest are infertility and high-risk OBGY. She's received the late Dr. Ajenulu Memorial Gold Award for standing first in PG exams. Welcome all the chairpersons. I would request Dr. Gayatri Rathod, madam, to please introduce our speaker for today.
Yeah. Before that, let me talk a little bit about the chairpersons from Hinganghat, Bhandara, and Pusad. I always call Dr. Gayatri and Dr. Meena Agarwal, Gayatri Rathod and Meena Agarwal, my mere to Anmol Ratan, because so close I am with them, and I had been to the Pusat Society, and wonderfully they are working, and they really brought up the Pusat Society activities so much, both of them, that Pusat Society has been emerged as the smallest but the most active, vibrant society. Over to you, Dr. Gayatri. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Varsha Madam, for the kind words for our society and for ours. And thank you, Dr. Nasreen. Good evening, one and all. At the outset, my sincere thanks to Dr. Varsha Madam and team for making me part of this unique webinar. It's my pleasure to introduce today's eminent speaker from UK, Dr. Nachappa Sivnesan. He has done his MBBS in 2009, MS in Trauma and Orthopedic Surgery 2015, MRCS Edinburgh 2020, Postgraduate Certificate in Medical Education 2022, ATLS certified in 2018. At present, he is working at clinic as a clinical fellow in Orthopedic Surgery Registrar at the East Kent Hospital University Foundation Trust. Welcome, sir, for your talk.
Welcome, ma'am. Hello, everyone.
Are you there? Yes.
I am.
Thank you
hello,
so much for being present in time.
No, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for waiting for me, and thank you for slotting me as number 2.
And first time we can see you in formal dress. Always I see you in promoted scrubs.
I had a formal event that I had to go to, and so I was all suited up for that. But thank you very much.
Okay.
It's a very distinguished panel we have here today. Thank you. So my greetings to the panel, my greetings to Dr. Baste, Dr. Mavani, and to all the other people whom I've known through this society. You've all been wonderful. I've spoken on this forum a couple of times, and we've done a little bit of introduction to medical research. I'm sure we've got quite a different audience today, and I'm happy to share what I know about medical research relevant to the topic that I've been given for the day, which is, hang on one second. Yeah. Can anyone see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Is my screen visible? Is
yes,
my presentation
we can see
visible?
the screen. Not yet. It's getting
Can you see
downloaded.
the
Types of scientific studies. Yes,
presentation?
we can see now.
Okay.
You can
Thank
make
you.
it slide
So
share.
that's the top. Yeah. Can everyone see now?
Yes, Nash.
All right. Okay. So that's the topic that I've been allotted today, and types of scientific studies and research. And I think it's very relevant in the realm of the whole medical research thing, as in how to choose what study design or what scientific study you want to do and how to go about it. Right. So a little bit about myself. Again, as I was introduced, I was a trainee in India, and I'm currently a registrar in trauma and orthopedics. I have a teaching role. I'm an MRCS tutor for the Cardiff University. I'm also a mock OSCE examiner for the Barts Medical School in London. And I'm also doing an honorary teaching role at the Canterbury Church, Christ Church University and University of Kent, in addition to my registrar role. Research role, I've done 2 years of a research fellowship. I've got 8 podium presentations and probably more poster presentations in conferences. And I've got 6 international publications to my credit. Outside of medicine and academia, I like to race. I hold a British racing license, and I've competitively raced open-wheel single-seater in karting. I'm a sailor. I do run a bit. I love photography. I play tennis and football. I love my music. My genre is 20th century rock and Carnatic, and I like to read. Right. Now coming to the meat of it. So before we start, I would relate this to my own journey of how I went about research when I was a complete newbie and an amateur to research. The first thing is, I think you should have the intent to do research, the intent to take up a subject and deeply analyze it and do what is required. Most of the times, at the outset, it looks very easy, but once people start doing it, including me, you will realize how difficult, arduous, and time-consuming it is. So what will help you through the whole process is an unwavering intent to finish the project and to endure it. Right. Now, once you have the intent and once you're motivated to go, the next important step is to choose a theme. A theme can be very broad, and a theme has to be broad, rather. And so, for example, in obstetrics and gynecology, I could choose something like high-risk obstetrics is a theme, infertility medicine is a theme, or uterine abnormalities, congenital uterine abnormalities is another theme. So that's basically an idea of a theme. So you have to choose your theme. And this choice of theme, again, comes down to what you are currently interested in and what you would like to do long-term. The third important thing is to come to the research question. Sadly, the research question does not spring up when you sit at a table with your Word document open and ready to type away. Seldom is it so. Most of the times, the research question pops when you're doing probably the most unrelated of tasks. For me, it is when I run, I get a very pertinent research question, and a lot of people would agree with me on this. When I talk about the research question again, now you have your theme written down, and when you come to the research question, it's very important to frame the research question, and you have to be accurate in framing the research question. A research question cannot be vague. So when there is vagueness in the research question, that is a chink in your armor for any critiques of your study to criticize your study, to find flaws in your study. So the more detailed, the more accurate, the more meticulous your research question is, your study is as good as that, because everything starts from there. That's the fountainhead of your research. And all the research that you do will link up to and correlate to your research question. So you need to build up that research question. And how do you build up that research question? You need to frame it really well. You need to address the specifics. You need to know exactly what you're doing. You need to be very detailed and specific about it. Okay. Now, you have your research question. We will do examples at the end of this talk, but then I just want to give you a broad overview. And this is quite a very lengthy verbose slide, but I had to put it down because I had to get everything into one picture and kind of make my point there. You have your research question. So the next question is, how are you going to take this research question forwards? i.e., what kind of study are you going to fit into this research question? The type of study, again, depends on what your research question is. But it's important, before you have the research question, to have an idea of what's out there in the market so that you can make your pick. If you don't know what's out there in the market, you're limited in your choices. But if you know all the varieties out there and you know a little bit about them, then you have the luxury of making a very informed choice about it. So as you can all see, I mean, there are many ways to group and classify types of research, but I think that this classification is the most practical and the most applicable, and that's why I've chosen this. So you have the descriptive studies, which are basically case studies, case reports, and opinions. So a case study is basically a case series. So you see about 6 or 8 cases, or probably 20 cases with the same presentation. You pick up a few salient features in them, like they all have elevated C-reactive proteins, and they all have a typical finding on an ultrasonogram. And then you write all of that up and you present that as a series, or you present that in a conference. The other thing is case reports. So a case report can be one or more than one. And most of the times it's a very, very rare phenomenon, which is seldom reported in literature. Even if it's reported in literature, it's 1 in a million or an equivalent of that. The third very interesting type is our opinions. Now, all of us have opinions as human beings. It's just the way we are. But having a scientific opinion is a completely different ballgame. The 2 types of opinions, you have commentaries and letters to the editor. The first type of opinion, commentaries, are basically your thoughts or views on something that's very relevant in today's context. For example, in the world of obstetrics and gynecology, I would say that abortion law in the West or in the States is very, very pertinent and important. And if there's someone who's done a lot of work in dealing with abortion and abortion law over the years, if that person has a view on what the present status of abortion law is in the United States, that can be a commentary. Commentaries are generally invited opinions. They are not something that everyone can do. You have to be invited by a journal or a scientific forum to give a commentary. And for that, to qualify for that, you have to have had a substantial amount of work in that particular field. The second type is letters to the editor. Now, letters to the editor is more something that we all can do. So again, if you're reading a very nice article in a scientific journal and you think that you know something more about it and you can add to it, but what you know is not extensive enough for it to be a publication by itself or a paper by itself, you can probably write to the journal in the letters to the editor section, contributing what you know to that body of evidence or that finding or that kind of conclusion from that scientific article. You can also use the letters to the editor section to point out flaws or shortcomings in any article that you think might be relevant. So that's a very important tool to it's a balance and check mechanism in a way, and it's also a way to add what you know to what is already known. Now we come to analytical studies. These are probably the most commonly done studies. So you have three types. You have cross-sectionals, you have case-control studies, and you have prospective cohort studies. With a cross-sectional study, it's basically what the name means. It's just slicing through a population at a particular point in time and finding out what the prevalence or the incidence of a certain condition or a disease is. It's like looking through a cake, slicing through a cake, or an ultrasound probe, as it how it slices through the human tissue and tells you the different layers of what is where. For example, you can do a cross-sectional study or in a town with a population of 500,000 and find out how many people are Rh positive, how many people are Rh negative, or you can do different things, or what kind of blood groups are prevalent, what's the majority blood group, and all of that. So all of that falls under cross-sectional studies. With case control studies, you're basically, so to explain case control and prospective cohort, they are very different, but also similar in a way. So let's start with prospective cohort studies. So with prospective cohort studies, you basically follow two cohorts through a period of time and see what the result is. You don't know what the future is. You are trying to follow them through a period of time and seeing what is going to happen in the future. A classical example would be to go to a town where there is a big asbestos factory, and you kind of list all the people who work in the asbestos factory and all the people who don't. And then you study them for the next 10 years, and then you run all different tests on them. And at the end of 10 years, you see how many of them develop lung cancer and how many don't. And what you're trying to do by that is you're trying to draw a correlation to working in the asbestos industry and developing lung cancer. You're trying to work out a probability, you're trying to work out a correlation, you're trying to work out an odds ratio, but you're doing it through the future. Case control is very similar, but you start at the farther end and then you work your way backwards. So you're not looking at the population over a period of time, but you're digging into their records and seeing what happened in the future. So it's a little bit of forensic investigational work, if you could call it that. So basically, the classic example is smoking and lung cancer. You take a group of 100 people who have lung cancer, and then you go through their records and find out how many have smoked in the past and for how many years. And again, you're trying to draw a correlational equation, or you're trying to come up with an odds ratio or a probability with this. The third most interesting thing is trials, and you have randomized control trials. What's a randomized control trial? It's probably a more extensive way of investigating something. It's generally used to test the efficacy of a drug or a pharmacological agent or a medicinal product, or to see how good a diagnostic test is. The classic example would be to say a drug X, and then you take two groups of people, you give drug X to one group, and you give another drug, which is not X, which does not do anything, and you call it a placebo to the other group, which is the control group, and you see if that cures the disease. How many of them who had drug X is cured of the disease, and how many of them who've had the placebo is cured. The two important things if anybody wants to do randomized controlled trials, and I think the two important things you have to remember with randomized controlled trials, it's very important to follow the principle of double binding. There is single binding and there is double binding. So double binding is the principle where the person who's recruiting people into the study is not aware as to which group they go into. And the people and the person analyzing the results is also not aware of this randomization. So that's probably the most foolproof method. And that eliminates bias, that eliminates investigator bias and recruiter bias. So with randomized controlled trials, there's this very problematic thing of bias that comes up, because as human beings, we're all biased and we tend to push people one way or the other, and we have stereotypes and we tend to follow those stereotypes. So these measures, especially double blinding, is put in place to eliminate one of those biases, which is investigator and recruiter bias. What are the other types of bias that can come up? Can I get some responses from the audience in terms of what other biases can come up? I'm sorry, can someone from the audience tell me what biases can come up? Okay, so the other types of bias that can come up is, one, you can have something called a gender bias, you can have something called an age bias. So depending on age or gender, you tend to push people into one group or the other group, thinking that they would be best suited for that. So the best way to do it is you have to age match and gender match. Age and gender are just two kinds of biases. There are many different types of biases. You have to age match and gender match both the cohorts. The software programs to do it. You can do it manually as well. And you need to ensure that there is an equitable distribution of your study subjects into those two groups. So that's how you do a randomized controlled trial. Again, so that's a very extensive study. It's done over a longer period. You need, of course, you need the ethical board clearance, or the institutional review board, as they call it in the States, for all of these, any kind of research or investigative work. But it's more relevant and it's more scrutinized for randomized controlled trials, because you're putting people through a certain treatment which might be effective, might not be effective, and you can have side effects due to it. So all of those things. So all of that is the check and balance for that is in the ethical committee scrutiny, right? Right. So another type. I mean, I didn't want to put this there because just for the fear that it could get very crowded and I would lose emphasizing how important this is, and that's why I've kind of made this as a different slide. Reviews and analysis. Okay, so if you look at the hierarchy of evidence and the pyramid of evidence, as they call it, there is level 6 evidence, which is at the bottom of the pyramid, and there's level 1 evidence, which is right at the top of the pyramid. For the sake of brevity of this talk, I'm not going to go into the different types and where each one sits. But level 6 is basically opinions, just individual subjective opinions are at level 6, which is quite the basal level. And at level 1, which is right at the apex of the pyramid, you have meta-analysis and systematic meta-analysis, and below that you have systematic reviews, which tells us that a meta-analysis is probably the most scientifically validated consensus, conclusion, result, or opinion you could have about anything. So it's interesting to know how this is done and why it is climbed its way right to the top. So for that, I'll give you a general overview of the different types of reviews and analysis. So you have the scoping review. So now I have a huge audience of gynecologists, and I think the best way to describe a scoping review is to describe a hysteroscopy. So with a hysteroscopy, you go into the uterus, you find out what is there, you explore the uterus. Scoping review is something very similar, but you are trying to scope something that's very new, nascent, just coming in. Very few people have done some work on it. There's a lot of interest being generated. There is not much out there. You scope into it and you find out what is there. It's just you're putting out your feelers and finding out what is there. So that's a scoping review. It's a very useful tool to satiate your own interests about something. If you really want to know about something and you want to write it all down, then do a scoping review. You might as well get a paper out of it. Now, the next thing is a narrative review. A narrative review is what is generally written as a non-systematic review. Most of the non-systematic reviews would fall into the realm of a narrative review. It's basically a review of a current practice, a current guideline, or whatever, or what is happening right now, and you do it in a very non-systematic, free-flowing fashion. You're the narrator, and so you take it your own way. Whereas a systematic review is quite different because you follow a protocol, you follow a system, you follow a framework. Systematic reviews are very hard to write, but are very easy to interpret because they follow a certain protocol. You have to register your systematic review in something called a Prospero protocol. It's available on the internet. You can go and have a look at it. But once you follow the Prospero protocol, then you have a certain way of reporting your review at every stage, and you have to incorporate that in your written manuscript. Because of that, it is more validated, it is more authenticated, it has more credibility because of that. Again, so with a systematic review, you've got all the evidence. There are 20 different people who've done some work on, let's say, ultrasound in the first trimester. But there's no clear consensus. There are 15 people who say it this way and 5 people who say that way. You just cannot say that something is right because 15 of the papers say it, and you can't say something is wrong because 5 of the people say it. You have to analyze what the 15 papers said, what was the study design of the 15 papers, and what was their overarching conclusions, what were the assumptions, all of that. And you have to analyze these 5 papers as well. The review that does it is the systematic review. You're at the vantage point of an eagle, and you're looking at all the evidence that's spread out before you, and you analyze each of it, and then you come up with your own consensus or analysis. And that's why it is so important to do a systematic review well, because your opinion would be right at the top of the pyramid, of the apex of the pyramid. A meta-analysis is very similar to a systematic review, except that you use a lot of quantifiable data. You use the numbers. So you go into those 20 papers, you look at the numbers which each paper has dealt with, and you do a biostatistics for all the numbers. You do something called a forest plot, and then you justify your conclusion based on the numbers. And for that reason, a meta-analysis sits even higher than a systematic review. The last one is very interesting. It's called a bibliometric analysis. Again, you choose a theme, and then you go into literature and you see who has published what and how many papers have been published. Where did the papers come from? For example, a lot of papers can come from Australia about a certain skin condition which is directly linked to ultraviolet radiation because they see a lot of it in their country. So you kind of analyze where most of the papers come from, and you identify a certain specific research group if they have been doing continuous work on it, and you also find out if a certain paper has been cited more number of times than the other, and you put it all, you tabulate it, you do the math, you analyze it, and that's a bibliometric analysis. The next thing are audits and QIPs. I'm sorry for the use of the acronym. QIP stands for Quality Improvement Projects. Now, what is an audit? An audit is just like you have a financial audit. You are scrutinizing something against a set guideline or a set standard. Most of the times, audits and quality improvement projects do relate to provision of service. So it can be service in your clinic, it can be service in your ultrasound scan center, it can be service in your hospital, it can be service in your pharmacy, anything. But you have to have a certain established guideline or a standard against which you're establishing or you're looking at how you did or your service did. You're not expected to be 100%, and that's the reason why you're doing the audit. You have to identify where you stand, what the problem is, and what could be done. You have to mitigate that. So loop 1 of the audit is to find out the problem, identify the problem, and find ways to mitigate it. Closing the loop of the audit is to put that mitigation in place and see how it works and re-audit it and see if there's an improvement in standard. A quality improvement project is very similar to an audit, but again, you're not auditing against a standard or a guideline. You're just looking at a service, you're thinking of ways that can be improved, you put those ways and means into practice and you see how it improves. Audits and quality improvement projects can be presented in conferences and can also be published if done well and if done meticulously. Now, what's the essential toolkit before, now you've got the research question, you've decided what kind of study you want to do. Say, I want to do a prospective cohort study, and I've decided that. I've got my research question, I've got my type of study. Now, what do I need to pack in my bag to go on this long and arduous journey of research? So the few things you have to take stock of, and be very realistic to yourself. You'll have to take stock of the time you can devote to it. You'll have to set a time window before which this has to be finished. And you also have to determine how many hours in a day you can dedicate to this. It's very easy to say I can do 3 hours every day, but you have to be very realistic. I am terribly guilty of this. I tell myself I can do 2 hours every day, but I hardly end up doing 30 minutes every day. Dr. Kanigil Turaj, who's in the audience, would know more about this because she knows how this goes with me, right? And then you have to take stock of your material resources. So it's very important to make a list of what you need for the research. What kind of
Sorry to interrupt, Nachappa, you have 2 minutes more.
I will finish in 2 minutes, yes.
Yeah.
So you'll have to determine what kind of material resources you need, what kind of financial resources you need. If you're going to be funded by somebody, if you're going to self-fund yourself, and you have to be very careful in assembling a team because you can't do it all by yourself. You need other people to do it as well. You have to plot your path. You have to make a whole pathway or map your path in this journey of research. So again, as I told you, you have to build a team. You have to have a multidisciplinary team bound by a written code or an unwritten code. Research meetings cannot just all be about coffee and cake. You have to get things done. Flag points, you have to have intermittent flag points. They have to be time defined. They have to be task defined, and you have to be very strict with them, with the flag points, and make sure you are accountable to yourself. Micro delegation is important as well. End result, you have to determine if you're going to publish it or you're going to present it, and where you're going to publish it and present it, and you have to work towards it because different presentation forums and publication forums have different targets, and you have to tailor make your project to it. Abandoning the ship, if it's taking too long and if it's proving to be not go anywhere or not be progressive, you have to be prepared to abandon the ship. This was a practical example that I decided to do, but I don't think we can do it for want of time. But we are very interested in collaborations. That's my email, nash.s.utraraj@simfa.com. I'll put it down in the chat as well. That's Dr. C.V. Kanigil-Turaj. He's a collaborator as well. That's her phone number. We're part of the Tamrai Healthcare and the Simfa Foundation, and we work out of Coimbatore. I work on an honorary basis in this foundation. It's a family-run.
Thank you, Dr. Nachappa, Nash, Pallavi, Dr. Nasreen, Dr. Priya. Just take this phone number or take it from me for collaboration, because that's why I always invite him, so we can have collaboration of any sort in research. Dr. Nachappa, it was really nice to hear you. Always I like to hear you, and you are such a young person and wise person with great updates you are pouring in always in our each of the webinars. So I would like Dr. Jaya Kore and Dr. Manoj also to give their concluding remarks for Dr. Nachappa's talk.
Hello.
Chairpersons.
Hello. Indeed, it's a very elaborative talk on how to conduct the research, which is going to help our participant to conduct research in future. Thank you once again for your excellent talk.
Jaya, please, your remarks.
It was so much elaborative talk, sir. You discussed everything from the start, from choosing a theme to accuracy of the question, different reviews, analysis, and different studies you discussed so beautifully with beautiful examples of it. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Pleasure.
Thank you, sir. I liked your concluding remarks that there should not be only coffee and cake at the meetings. That is the main part.
I'm guilty of it. You can't find me without a coffee mug.
Yeah, so there has to be substantial things when the meetings about the research are taking place. It is not just coffee and cake. That is the main thing. Okay, now thank you so much, sir. Now I request Dr. Palm Sao madam, that is Shashibala Bhosle madam,
and I welcome her. And over to you, madam. Palm, madam, are you there?
If Palm is not there, Dr. Priya, please take over.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shinde.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Dr.
Please share the CV for the
waiting since long. Yeah.
Yeah. Our third talk is how to write a scientific paper. And speaker for this session is Dr. Girija Wagh, madam. And I would like to invite the chairpersons. CV of first, yeah. Dr. Kavita Gandhi, madam, our own president from Chandrapur. I welcome you, ma'am. With her blessings only we are here with you all and her guidance. Next CV, please. Our next chairperson is Dr. Meena Agrawal, madam. Madam is from Pusat. She was the president of Pusat in 1920. And she has done various CME and social awareness activities. She has chaired the session at Akola Yotmal and MOGS Nanded, MOGS Amravati. I welcome you, ma'am, Dr. Meena Agrawal, madam. Our third chairperson is Dr. Prerna Panpalia. She is the director of Devki Hospital and Obstetric Critical Care. She is present secretary of Akola OBGY Society. Her area of interest is high risk obstetric and infertility. And she is a winner of Yuva FOGSI quiz competition West Zone on gynec oncology and first runner-up in quiz competition at IAEC Ahmedabad. And with this, I welcome you, ma'am. And now I hand over to the chairpersons to invite our speaker.
Let me first congratulate Dr. Kavita Gandhi, Meena Agarwal, and Pampalia madam for chairing the prestigious session by none other than Dr. Girija Wagh. And I'm really thankful all of you to be present here and accepting and gracing the occasion. Thank you. Over to you, chairperson.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. I have to introduce Priya.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
To Girija Wagh.
CV of Dr. Girija Wagh, madam.
Actually, we all know Girija madam, but still I have to say a few words. Madam is from Pune and she is professor Obstetric Department, Bharati Vidyapit College and Hospital, Pune. She is senior consultant at Apollo and Cloud9 Hospital,
Madam, we
Pune.
can
She
do
has
with
graced
that.
many.
It's okay. We
Okay,
can
okay,
post
ma'am.
my CV in the chat box. Everybody can read it.
Okay, ma'am. So I welcome you. Over to you.
Yes. Thank you so much, madam. Thank you for the patience and the understanding. And I take this opportunity to thank everybody, especially Dr. Varsha Baste, for giving me this opportunity to share whatever little I know about writing paper. This is something in a life of a professor and a teacher. I've been teaching for the past 30 years. So we have to be having these publications. We have to guide our students and we have to continue to make an impact on the fraternity. And therefore, it's very important that all of us write paper. It's not only about being in a college or in medical school, but everybody who is dealing with patients and has a quantum of patience, has a quantum of experience. It is extremely important that we write papers. For example, I remember Priya telling me that, madam, we are very eager to learn as to how can we write these scientific papers and how can we bring some meaning to the world. And it's very important to write these papers because I'll tell you a simple example. While I was reading about postpartum hemorrhage and the usage of bimanual massage, long time back in the last century, there was an obstetrician who has written that he had given bimanual massage continuously to a patient for a period of 5 hours and saved her life. You imagine. So this thing is something that that man wrote, and therefore we can vouch and we can then know what can be the extreme limit. Let us consider another similar kind of an example where I was investigating because one of the IAEC, they asked me to write about nutritional care in eclampsia patients. And I did a lot of research on this, and it was found in Europe, when that time only blood pressure was the means of checking, that also they did not have standardized machines, but they used to find, this particular doctor found that the women used to get bloated. And then he found that giving her a lot of eggs reduces her edema. And he had
has written in his anecdotes that he has given eggs up to 52 to 54 eggs to some women, and they have ameliorated the disease to an extent. So, there are so many such things which we as clinicians experience, which we must learn to document. It can be your clinical diary, it can be your surgical diary. And now today we have a vista of lot of data being collected in an electronic medium. Get into the bandwagon right away and start collating your data. Thank you for giving me that very kind introduction. Now, whenever we look at writing research paper, does not come naturally to most of us. And the typical research paper is a highly codified rhetorical form. And what do you mean by a rhetorical form is the question that comes to our mind. What happened here? Yeah. So rhetoric is nothing but reason, well-dressed, and argument put in order, actually, literally the dictionary meaning. And the knowledge of the rules, some explicit, other implied, goes a long way towards writing a paper that will get accepted in a peer-reviewed journal. And that's something which is very, very important. And therefore, when we look at the rhetoric triangle, it has to have the ethos, that's the writer, the pathos, that's the audience, for whom are you writing, and the logos, the context of what you are writing. And therefore, if you look at what you're going to write in a scientific paper, research question is going to be the core of this particular writing, which is the study objective or main research hypothesis, which is the central organizing principle of the paper. And whatever relates to the research question belongs to in the paper and the rest doesn't. So if you're going to write about the usage of oral FCM in pregnant women, you are going to be very specific. You're not going to say iron deficiency occurs because of this and that. So you are going to be focused and trying to answer the question which you have posed to the scientific question. So a good research paper will address a specific research question, but of course there can be certain altercations. And we had Dr. Sivanesan talking to us about various kinds of papers and data that can be there. In applied domains such as quality improvement, some papers are written based on projects that were undertaken for operational reasons and not with the primary aim of producing new knowledge. And in such cases, authors should define the main research question a posteriori and design the paper around it. For example, in my hospital or in my Primrose clinic, what is the waiting time of my patients? When they come when they come and see me, when they get an intervention, this can be your quality paper. So you can just time it, make your question, make a pro forma where you can collect this data and then analyze it. So it's always smarter to stick to only one question. Only one main research question should be addressed in a paper. Secondary but related questions are allowed. And if a project allows you to explore several distinct research questions, write several papers. So you can just collate a data and you can actually try to answer many questions also from that particular data. So let's look at an example. To study the impact of obtaining written consent on patient satisfaction at your clinic using a newly developed questionnaire. So you may want to write one paper on the questionnaire itself, how you developed it and what was the validation of the questionnaire that you decided to use in this particular study, and another on the impact of the intervention that you decided. So what are the basic attributes of the scientific question? It has to be specific, try to be as original and novel as possible, and has to have general relevance to a broad scientific community. And the research question should be precise and not merely identify a general area of inquiry. And it can often, but not always, be expressed in the terms of a possible association between X and Y in a population of Z. So it has to be relevant. It has to be in the context and it has to be properly to the population. We were talking about biases in our previous talk. So we examined whether, let's look at a study, whether providing patients about to be discharged from the hospital with return information about their medications would improve their compliance with the treatment 1 month later. So this is your study. So this will be a very specific study you will rely, and the study does not necessarily have to be break completely new grounds, but it should extend previous knowledge in a useful way or alternatively refute existing knowledge. Finally, the question should be of interest to others who work in the same scientific area. Now, recently in the September 2022, We have a meta-analysis of studies done on progesterone use in preterm labor. And there's going to be a whole lot of change occurring in this dimension. And we are now looking at identifying that actually progesterone is not really giving as results as should be expected from it. So these continuous studies go on happening. We have been using progesterone for a long time, but we have to continuously keep on answering the question. And that is what I meant by that it will not be something new ground. It can be the same ground. And it's a very simple thing. Many times every year, the WHO comes with certain research questions on its websites. You can just go and look at one of those questions and take it as, something. Like, let's say, what is the incidence of urinary tract infection in antenatal mothers visiting your clinic? And then what is the possible cause? Are there any background risks? Are there any consequences which are happening? This can be simple studies. So the latter requirement is more challenging for those who work in applied science than for basic scientists. So now let's look at the structure of the paper. Once the research question is clearly defined, writing the paper becomes considerably easier. The paper will ask the question, then answer it. So introduction would be why. The key to successful scientific writing is getting the structure of the paper right. And the basic structure of a typical research paper is the sequence of introduction, methods, results, and discussion. And this is typically called as the IMRAD as a mnemonic, where you introduce, then you may write a little bit of literature review and the context, why did you pose this question and why are you trying to find an answer? How did you reach to find the answer to this question would be the method. What were the results of whatever you applied? And then discussion and conclusion. And as clinicians, it's always better to try to get into, and therefore we are having very less clinical researchers, which is very important because they are definitely going to have what we call as a translational value, which is going to help modify our clinical practices. So therefore, each and every section of the structure of the paper answers typical questions. So the title, author, abstract, keywords will descriptive information that lets readers search for an article. Introduction is what is the context for this project? How does it fit in the other research on the topic? And what is the research question? Within the first introduction itself, your research question has to be seen there. If you're going to do some sort of an intervention study in anemia, for example, you're not going to write the whole paragraph of what is anemia and all. What is your question? And what is the context of that question should be in the introduction. Methods, what did the authors do to answer the research question? And what was the answer to the question? This is often shown in tables and figures. What is the significance of this project? How does it fit in what else is known about the topic? And references where materials the authors cited when writing this paper. Because you will take a reference of, there'll be similar studies, or there would be some reason why you decided that this could be there, that should come in your proper references. Now, when we look at the author state, the problem they intend to address in other terms, the research question in the introduction, what they did to answer the question in the method section, then what they observed in the results section, and what they think the results mean in the discussion is how you write a scientific paper. So each basic section addresses several topics and may be divided into subsections, like an introduction, the problem, its importance, the current knowledge, and the objectives of the study or the research question. In the method, you would describe it, specify the study design, describe the population where you're studying it, the sampling strategy, the intervention if applicable, the main study variables, describe the data collection instruments and procedures, and outline the methods of analysis that you have used for analyzing it. And results, you write the report on the data collection and recruitment, describe participants, present key findings with respect to the central research question, and present secondary findings, outcomes, and subgroup analysis. Be very simple. Write it in your own language. Sometimes we tend to copy paste from other papers, which is not right, because that can amount to plagiarism. You have to write in your own simple language, and that is more affable and understood. The results section is typically straightforward and factual. All results that relate to the research question should be given in detail, including simple counts and percentages, and resist the temptation to demonstrate analytic ability and the richness of the data set by providing numerous tables of non-essential results. Because those statistical tables were meant for you to arrive to a conclusion, You are supposed to make it simple and deliver it to your audience. In discussion, you should state the main findings of the study, the main results with reference to be discussed with the previous research, discuss the policy and the practice implications of the results, analyze the strengths and limitations of the study, and offer perspectives for future work. I think this was also what Geeta mentioned. And references should be used wisely, where key assertions should be referenced as well as the methods and instruments used. Unless the paper is a comprehensive review of a topic, there is no need to be exhaustive. And references to unpublished work to document in the gray literature, that is technical reports, or to any source that the reader will have difficulty finding or understanding should be avoided. Because today, everywhere when you write scientific papers, they have wonderful softwares. So they will send it to us as like I'm a peer reviewer to many journals. So they already have analyzed whether this study is validated or not. And they have these softwares which identify everything, including plagiarism. So don't forget the basics. Having the structure of the paper in place is a good start. There are many details that must be attended to while writing. Obvious recommendation is to read and follow the instructions to authors published by the journal, which are very typically placed on the website. Another concerns are non-native writers of English. So you have to have a good dictation if you're going to write in paper in English, and that is what we are commonly doing in our country. And therefore you can have, there are so many computer softwares also. I prefer to use Grammarly, which is wonderful, and that can help you to edit your manuscript. And a paper usually goes through several drafts before it is submitted. So you read it once. If you can't read it on the screen of the laptop, take a printout, read yourself, see the referencing is right, see that your punctuations are right, and then only submit. You can start sending them to some friends who are, teachers, professors. They can peer review your writing, suggest you changes, and then you can publish. The common mistakes made are that the question is not specified. The stated aim of the paper is tautological, that the aim of this paper is to describe what we did, or vague, we explored. These are not what should be asked. The structure of the paper is chaotic. The manuscript does not follow the journal's instructions for authors, and the paper much exceeds the maximum number of words that were allowed. The introduction is an extensive review of the literature. Methods, interventions, and instruments are not described. Results are reported selectively, example, percentages without frequencies or p-values without measures of effect. The same results appear both in table and in the text. And that's something which happens, very repetitive about the same thing is not nice. It's not a readable paper. And detailed tables are provided for results that do not relate to the main research question. And in the introduction and discussion, key arguments are not backed by appropriate references. The references are out of date or cannot be accessed by most readers. Discussion does not provide an answer to the research question. It overstates the implications of the results and does not acknowledge the limitations of the study. And the paper is written in poor English. So when we look at the research paper writing, from selecting a topic to identifying the research problem, collect the relevant data, analyze the data, write the research paper, and read and then improve your writing, because it's very important to write research paper. It can help you to write better. Assistance from best experts can be there. Effective use of all kinds of resources should be there. And development of critical thinking is what is, sort of encouraged by paper writing. So as the dictum goes, publish or perish, which is very, very true. And therefore we must continue to publish, because finally we owe it to our patients and our fraternity to keep a legacy of sound experience behind, so that our followers can follow and learn for the betterment of humanity. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
What a talk, Dr. Girija Wagh. Given a topic, any topic, and you really justify it. Such a simplified, straightforward, how to write a scientific paper. Now we are all ready to do it and follow it, whatever you have told to us. Over to you, Dr. Chairperson. Thank you, Dr. Girija Wagh, for accepting our invitation and giving such a wonderful deliberation. And we feel boosted and motivated to write how to write it really scientifically. Thank you so much for
the success of my talk if all of you start writing papers.
Hello.
And the mistakes we make. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, madam. Thank you. It's a very elaborative, informative, with a very fantastic examples. She has explained in a very simple way. And now I understand the scientific paper contains title, abstract, keyword, introduction, method, results, discussion, and conclusion, and reference list. Thank you very much. And what common mistakes we are making in a day-to-day practice? We used to do a lot of clinical studies, but we afraid to share the observation because of lack of this knowledge. And thank you, Girija Madam has explained it in such a manner. It's really is proud for me to present some scientific papers. Thank you, Madam. Thank you very much. And I also want to thank Varsha Madam and all organizers for giving me opportunity for chairing this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Meena.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Girija ma'am. Thank you for the practical tips. I also hope my myself and my members will definitely go in this topic of the research and journal writing. Thank you, madam. It's time to move forward with next session. Icing on the cake is the quiz, and the in charge of the quiz is Dr. Surekha Taide madam. We all know Dr. Surekha madam very well. Madam is Professor, Unit Head, JNMC Savangi. And this is her CV, which she is presently at this much post she is holding at present now.
Webinar itself.
Yeah, this is the complete, this is not the past or anything. This is the present post she is having. So I was reading in the afternoon and this is her present post. I just want to mention one or two that she is a chairperson of Global Women's Health Task Force Network. And she's a founder member and vice chair of this South Africa Women Health Together for the Future. And also, I think she is the chairperson, president of ISOPA. Of Vidarbha chapter.
She is member of our International Academic Exchange Committee also.
And let us keep everything because I think everybody is waiting for the quiz.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
we all know each other. So definitely.
Thank you, Dr. Surekha Taide, for adding spice to this webinar. Thank you so much.
Dr. Varsha had told me to do a lecture, but I thought that everybody is, with at 9:45, we would be more interested in a quiz. And I always, when I go to my classrooms, I always take a Kahoot quiz with me. And that makes all my, students very interested to come to the class, even if it is at 8 a.m. Even at 8 a.m. or even post lunch, they will be very, very happy to run and come to the class, because if I start at the dot time and they don't, they are not there for the quiz, then they won't be seen on the tally on the board. Okay, so I always do a Kahoot quiz. And I like it very much because during the quiz also,
sorry. I request the speakers to answer the questions written in the chat box and question Q&A. Please, Girija. Yeah. Okay. Over to you, Dr. Surekha.
Okay. So I was just saying that this quiz is one of the way of learning, because when we give a questions, we usually have some explanation to it. And that is how we clear the doubts of our students also. So I thought instead of a lecture, a quiz will be very nice. And so I thought I will do the quiz. And the quiz is very, very basics. Like we are saying, why not the private practitioner? Why can't they do the research? What's important? Is it important for them to know about clinical research? We always have in our mind that clinical research is done by institution people. It's not so. Okay, and sometimes we have doubts about ethics. Sometimes we have so many doubts how to go about it. Is it really important? So all those questions only I have kept. Okay, and this is on a Kahoot app. So without wasting much time, all of you also can participate. So those who are participants, they can participate. Those who are faculty, they can participate. And I hope that Dr. Varsha will give us some prize for those who, and Dr. Nachappa, you cannot participate.
We are going to give certificates to the winners.
Yeah, well, I thought I could participate as well.
You will be at the top of the tally, I know. Okay. Anyway,
we also get a certificate, don't
because it's a very, very basic,
Thank
maybe
you.
for undergraduates.
I
Yeah,
still
yeah,
may not know.
Nachappa, you can also
I
participate.
don't think I know everything now.
Okay, so we go and do the Kahoot quiz. Okay, and here is
Yes.
my. I hope you'll be able to see my screen. Okay,
Yes,
so
we
this
can.
is the. Yes, ma'am. You have to take out your mobile phones first of all. Okay, all of you, you need to have your
Yes.
mobile phones in your hands. So hope you have joined
have
from your computer. So you'll have your mobile phones in your hand. And I'm going to start the quiz on the classic mode. And you will be seeing a Kahoot pin. Dr. Nachappa, it is very, very basic, okay?
No, I'm
let's
just gonna
hope
observe.
if you can
Don't
see.
worry.
It's not for
No,
Nachappa,
you
it is
can
for
be
us.
there. Don't
So
worry.
don't worry
If you
about
win
him.
also, no problem. You can join. Okay. So this is the
Mobile
pin.
तो ले लिया, अभी क्या करने का है?
हाँ, अभी एक pin आएगा. Okay. The pin is loading. Can you see my screen? Is it visible?
Yes, yes. Yes, ma'am.
So game, it's loading the pin. I hope my network works. Is it taking time to load the pin?
We just have to enter the pin, or we have to go to the site.
No, I'll tell you. This is the Kahoot, www.kahoot.it. You go on that, but the game pin is yet loading. Let's hope that it works.
It's coming like this, no?
1 minute. It's taking time. मेरा network का problem नहीं. Kahoot.it. Okay, Kahoot.it.
Yes. So you give us the pin.
Yeah.
Game
so supposed to come because my network is working, but it is not here. I'm thinking of changing my. Yeah. So this is the game pin. 702856.
702856. Okay.
Okay.
Enter.
So please,
Yes.
please, you should have some nicknames. Otherwise, I'll know this is Varsha Baste who is playing. So you can add a nickname. So please join. Ajinkya, NM. Okay.
Okay. Nickname डाल दिया.
Nasreen, Vijay. Okay. We give some time for you to join.
Yes.
We have joined.
6 of you have joined. We'll wait for a few more people. Bela.
At least 45 people can join.
Many can join, but let's see. Everybody can
All of
join.
you go to this website www.kahoot.it and then you will ask to enter the pin to register with their pin and enter and nickname you have to enter.
Okay. Kahoot.it. Game pin is 702856.
If we have joined from the phone, it is not possible, no?
Yes,
if you have joined for a phone, then you have
By
to
phone
open.
only you have to join. Go to Gmail. Go to Google.
No, if the webinar is joined through this phone, is it possible to do the Kahoot at a time?
Yeah, you can open a new window.
Okay.
You open a new window. You can do it. So 9 people only. We have 15 faculty. All of you should join. Nash.
At present 45 are there, so they can. Nash, you can also. Pallavi, Priya, Tina, please join. They are taking some time, I think. Saiti, you can also. Manjusha, Shashibala, Nasreen, Gayatri,
70
सिर्फ 10 सवाल है और बहुत ही आसान है, तो सब लोग आ जाओ। बहुत आसान सवाल है।
702
सबको सारे आंसर पता होंगे, सिर्फ क्विकली कौन आएगा उसी को हम टैली में देख पाएंगे।
702-856.
Okay, 702-856.
Yeah.
Go to www.kahoot.in. It on your Google. Okay.
Yeah.
So should we start? There are 14 people.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's start. Okay.
Do we have to say start?
Yeah, no. 15.
Okay.
16.
You are in. Okay.
Okay, I start now, and 10 seconds
please,
for
yes,
each
please.
question and answer within 10 seconds. Okay.
Okay. 10 seconds. Okay, ma'am. Loading. Get ready. Yes, we are
3,
getting ready.
2, 1. So now our question is, what is clinical research? The answer, it is a process where clinical trials are conducted. Number 2, where vaccines and drugs are studied, where people, data, sample, tissue from people are studied to understand health and disease. And, oh, sorry, you have got it. Have you ticked? Nobody has answered?
तुमने जब ये कर रही थी तब तक हमारा ये हो गया. Oh, sorry.
Yes. So you people have to answer, okay? On your tab, you'll be getting the red, blue, yellow, and green, okay? You'll have to click it, okay?
Okay. Yes.
This was a trial. We just go on the next, okay? The answer is when people, data, or either sample from tissue from people, they are studied to understand health and disease, then that is called clinical research. It is not only vaccines and drugs, it is not only clinical trials, it is not only publishing, but anything which you study the people, you study the data from the sample, that's called as clinical research. Okay, so that's clinical research. And we go to the next question. Quickly look at the question, and 10 seconds only I have given. Now, question is, so there is nobody here who have, so we don't have people on the scoreboard yet. Now, second question is, how is clinical research different from clinical practice? Is it both are part and parcel of each other? The clinical practice is treatment. This is evidence. In practice, we manage patients. We conduct trials. Clinical practice depends on clinical research. So answer is
2.
Okay, 2, where clinical practice is established treatment is used, whereas in clinical research, evidence is collected so that we can establish some treatment. So
10 सेकंड बहुत कम हो जाता है, समझते ही हो जाता है, कोई बात नहीं.
कोई बात नहीं, अगली बार हम 20 सेकंड देंगे, ठीक है? थोड़ा सवाल लंबा हो जा रहा है. तो 4 लोगों ने ये दिया है, and the answer is we do not have people who have answered correctly.
No.
No one has answered. What is answered? Question is, retrospective studies do not require approval from institutional ethic board. Is that true?
No, false.
Oh, don't. You just have to click on your own. Everybody. So all 10 have answered correctly, because retrospective studies also require approval from institutional ethics board. In fact, all the studies, including your case reviews and all, any data you have collected, any human data you have collected, everything requires institutional ethics board. You cannot just collect the data and publish it. You should go through an institutional ethics board. Some of the ethics board will waiver your, they will just say, okay, no need, but you have to submit the documents and get the approval. So that's very, very important. You cannot just publish by just collecting data. You need to go through an institutional ethics board. So all 10 of you have answered correctly. That's very, very nice. Now let's see who has, yes. So Rani is first, followed by Nasreen, then Shikha, then we have MS, and we have Dr. Neena. Okay, so this is our tally for today. So हमारा खाता यहाँ पे खुला है, तो शायद 10 सेकेंड थोड़े कम हो रहे हैं, तो quickly review करिएगा. Question is next. How does clinical research affect your practice? It helps a good patient flow. Second is it gives us guidance of procedures you can use in talks. New drugs can be discovered and you improve your patient outcomes. Okay?
अरे वो तो सबते हो गया.
तो 4 लोग
करते हो गया.
So 2 of you have given the right answer that we use clinical research so that we can have improved patient outcomes. We can have critical thinking, we can have reflective practice in our healthcare professionals so that our patient outcomes are increased. So that is why we use clinical research in our clinical practice. Okay. So again, at the top of the board is now Shikha, followed by Rani.
Shikha तो बहुत ही बाबा.
हाँ, then Nasreen, MS, and Dr. Neena. So we go to our 5th question, and the question is, I am a private practitioner. I want to do research. How should I obtain an IRB approval? Answers are, I don't need an IRB. There is no need for IRB. I don't have access to IRB. I can approach an institution, or you can form your own IRB.
3.
Okay. So the answer is you can approach an IRB in your nearby institution. Okay, and you can submit your documents. They will be reviewed by that institution and you can give a institutional review board approval. So even if you're a private practitioner, you can have an access to a institutional review board in the nearby institution or an hospital, and you can approach it, submit the documents and get an approval. Even for a retrospective study, you will be needing a institutional review board approval. That is the answer. And we have 2 right answers here. And let's see who is topping the board now. So again, Shikha is at the top, followed by Nasreen, then Rani, MS, and Dr. Neena. So that Shikha has the highest answer streak of 3. So she has 3 correct answers till now. So big hand for Shikha. Let's hope others can again catch up with her. Nasreen is trying to move up here. So next question, true or false? Does a case report require consent? Yes or no?
Yes.
She's telling the answers. So even if it is a case report, the answer is, sorry for the typing mistake. So all 14 of you are right. Even if it's a case report, you do need to have consents, especially from the for your photographs. If you are publishing the photograph, that's very, very important that you should have a written consent with you. So it's not so that you're having an interesting case which has been delivered, a baby, delivered with some congenital anomaly, and you can just pick up and click the photo and publish. That is not so. You should take a written consent, and it is very, very important, very much ethical that you should have a consent from the patient, and if it's a minor, then from the parents as well. So that's important before you publish. So we have the scoreboard here. Shikha is still leading, and followed by Nasreen, Rani, and MR is trying to move up, and followed by Dr. Neena. So that's very, very important. And now next, 7th question. Which declaration guides the physician to conduct the proper clinical research and helps protect the human subject? Is it a universal declaration of ethics? It is the Declaration of Helsinki, Moral Code of Ethics, or Food and Drugs Administration? What is it? So it is the Declaration of Helsinki and the Nuremberg Code, actually, which guides the clinical research and helps protect the human subject. It is very, very important that we know about this declaration under which all the clinical research and all the ethical codes are there. So 4 of you have answered correctly. The Food and Drugs Administration is for drugs and whatever nutrition related. So that all comes under food and drugs. So you have to remember the declaration of health scheme. So who has topped the score? So again, at the top is Shikha, followed by Rani, then Nasreen, MS, and MR. So congratulations. Shikha has 5 correct answers consecutively. So congratulations, Shikha. And the next question for you, what are the 4 principles of ethics? Is it autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice? Or is it beneficence, maleficence, justice, and autonomy? Beneficence, non-maleficence, respect and maximization? What is it? So we have a 1 correct answer. It is respect for autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice. That means you should respect the freedom of your participant. You should always try to do your best. Some benefit should be there. Non-maleficence means you should not do any harm, and justice means there should be no discrimination, equality and equity to all participants. So this is the code of ethics that all the research should follow. And let us see who has got the right answer.
Again, Shikha, ये तो नचप्पा ही दिख रहा है.
Yes. So we have Mandy who is moving up, and Shikha was still topping the scoreboard. So now next question, I think that the 9th question is, Tuskegee study observed the effects of syphilis disease when untreated. Can you do such observation? We cannot do anything if disease is untreatable. We can just observe. Tuskegee study was blacklisted. It is the most infamous study. So what is the, yes, 2 of you have got it right. It is the most infamous study. This Tuskegee study was carried out on Negroes, and they had syphilis, and they were told that they are going to observe for 6 months, but the study went on till almost 40 years. And they were not given any treatment. Actually, penicillin was discovered during that time period, but they were not given the benefit of penicillin also. So such kind of research you absolutely cannot do. It is one of the worst studies, infamous studies. And after that only this Belmont report and all the moral ethical codes were set up for clinical research. So let us, whatever study we do, let us follow all the ethical principles. That is, I think, the first lesson which we can learn and take homes from this webinar, that whatever study we do, let us follow the ethical principles where we will do no harm, we will respect the freedom of patients, and we will take proper consents as well. So let us see who has got, the 2 of you who have got it right. Again, Shikha is topping and Nasreen is moving up, Rani, MS, and Mandy. So congratulations. Pandu is the highest climber. Very nice. Up 5 places. So congratulations. Then let's move to the last question. What is a clinical protocol or practice protocol? It is something which is done in your unit, or it is a written plan that outlines, guides your practice. It is a case-based plan on experience, or it is guidance provided by an organization. So most of you have got it right. Yes, it is a written plan. It can be in your department. It is a protocol which it is an outline which guides your practice and the coordinated patient care. Mostly it depends on the research available with you, and that plan is written and followed by your whole of your department. Actually, it should not be based on a single individual. It should be a sort of a research and available, whatever the care practice is, it has to be given nicely in a planned manner to your department, so that there is a uniformity in care, and there is no, the design should be such that there should be a coordinated care to your patient. So that is called as a practice protocol. Whatever an organization gives to you is actually called a guideline. So if FOGSI gives you, it is a guideline. If RCOG gives you, it's a guideline. But if in your own hospital or something you follow a care plan, that is called as a protocol. So let's see who has got it right. So let's see who is on the podium. Can somebody take a picture? Third place is Rani. We have Shikha on the second place. And I think Nasreen has moved up. Let's see. Oh, so Nasreen has won the quiz with 5 questions out of 10, which are right. Again, Shikha is also having 5 questions correct, but I think she just took a little bit of second time का थोड़ा difference पड़ गया होगा. नहीं तो Nasreen followed by Shikha and Rani. This is our tally for today. So
Congratulations, everybody.
Congratulations. I think it was a little time management का थोड़ा. नहीं तो most of you have done.
नहीं तो सब लोग winner हो जाते थे.
So congratulations, Nasreen.
Thank you, ma'am.
You have the reason for losing the battle.
I hope we could learn from this quiz.
Thank you so much, Dr. Surekha. It was exciting and so nicely done. And you have uplifted our knowledge also and our standard also quite of answering. And the time management
I
was
think
really...
it was too basic.
No, certain things. It was really good to know certain things. I did have to think about quite a few things, but yeah, nice. well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Covered all the aspects, ma'am.
Yeah, and I kept only 10 questions and mostly related to our practice.
Thank you so much, Dr. Surekha, for organizing such a fantastic quiz and adding spice to this webinar. Thank you for being a co-convener.
And hope you can provide some certificates for Nasreen and Shikha
yes.
and Rani.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay, surely. Over to you, organizers.
Can I know who is Shikha and who is this third name?
Shikha is, I think, a senior resident, and Rani, let me find out who is Rani from the attendees.
Okay. Rani is Dr. Megha. Message has come.
Oh, Megha Kamlapurkar, ma'am. उनको तो
मेघा तो बहुत अच्छा है. मेघा कहाँ है तू? दिखा नहीं दिया मुझे मेघा. Wow, Megha, thank you so much
okay?
for joining.
So Shikha Toshniwal is there, followed by Megha and Nasreen. Nasreen is the topper.
Wow.
Congratulations, all the winners.
Thank you.
Okay. Over to you, organizers, for Thanksgiving.
Madam, Dr. Pam Madam is not there. She has given me the message. So I will continue with the
carry on.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I would like to thank, first of all, our chief guest, Dr. Basap sir, and guest of honor, Dr. Sujata Darbi Madam and Dr. Kiran Kurtakoti sir, for their valuable time and for gracing the occasion. Thank you, our convener, our dear Dr. Varsha Bastar Madam, and co-convener, Dr. Surekha Taide Madam, for timely guidance and for giving us this speakers. Because this was not possible without you, ma'am. We were thinking for the speakers, but you have made our path very, very easy. Thank you very much, Dr. Varsha Madam.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Surekha Madam, for the nice conduction of the quiz. Yes, it was very interesting. And it has given us the feeling of the college days. We have done after many, many days. And our Nasreen Madam is always a winner in our COGS. And she has proved here also. And I'm expecting a next article from Dr. Nasreen Mawani from COGS.
Hopefully, with blessings.
Good. Yes. I would like everybody to put on their video so I can take a click. Shikha, Girija, Saiti, if you are there, Mr. Nishant, Gayatri, I want to take a pic.
We are grateful to our speakers, Dr. Geeta Balsarkar Madam, Dr. Nachappa Shivanesan Sir, Dr. Girija Awad Madam, for the valuable guidance they have given regarding our topic. Thank you very much, speakers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Kavita Gandhi Madam, for keeping your presence and your gracious presence and attending the webinar and chairing the session. Dr. Meena Agarwal, I can see all these chairpersons, Gayatri, then Priya, thank you so much. Nasreen, thank you so much. Dr. Sulekha Taide, Kavita Madam, Girija, Sahiti Priya, Nishant, and everybody, even Megha, who is also joined. And I am really thankful for this wonderful webinar. It is not the number of people who are attending. It is the people who have already attended and they are enjoying and they are taking the advantage of the updates because they really intend to get knowledge, extract knowledge out of it. So it is not the numbers, but how many people who have really, they have really acknowledged the inputs and they have enriched their knowledge by attending such stalwart speakers we did have today, Dr. Geeta Balsarkar, Dr. Girija Wag, and Dr. Nachappa, also all the way from UK, and also our own Dr. Sulekha Taide. So it was a really high standard webinar, and it has enriched us and it has given us new views and values, how to go for research, how to do international research, and everything was covered in these 2-3 hours of discussion. So I hope it was enriching for you and added the values in your research, international research knowledge. Thank you so much for being here and gracing the occasion. Thank you. I really in depth of thankful for and grateful to you all. Thank you, Priya, Pallavi, Nasreen, Dr. Sulekha, Meena, Dr. Nachappa, Pallavi, Gayatri, and everybody present over here. Dr. Kavita too. Thank you. फिर से मिलेंगे every fortnightly we are having webinars and it is liked by many people and they attend it in large numbers. So wait for the next webinar. Thank you. Love you. Shabba khair. Good night. Thank you, Shield people, Saiti Priya and Nishan for giving the pharma support. Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, Dr. Nachappa, for coordinating with me so easily.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
Really nice.
Dr. Mavani.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much,
Out
Dr.
of talks,
Baste.
out of different webinar. We enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank you.
Sulekha.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night. Shabba khair.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Love you
Thank you.
all.
Thank you. Good night.
Beautiful.